Ooh, Kenny shoe though.
I've journaled cats for about 30 years. And what you said about reading that, I had to be careful which bits I read back.
So unless something
Ready then? It's all out already?
I had to ration myself and just not touch some bits for a long time.
I can imagine sharing this one.
From this side up for me. Just like the
Sometimes I read it and then all the time I read it to know it's valuable.
Yeah.
Old part, I can't still got. So it does.
So, situation?
Good afternoon. Has anyone not heard of Robin Hood? What we're going to do for you now is the opening part of the Lore of the Saelvatici, which is a folk horror interpretation of the Robin Hood myth cycle. Scored for 2 voices. The Mist Coil, no, that's part 2.
Oh, sorry. Got my thumb
We're
there.
professional. Didn't say professional what? The wildwood wound and the wildwood chimed. The wildwood chimed and the world died away. The world died away and the wildwood wailed, and into the wildwood was born a wild man. A wild man was born. A wildening of the woods. A wild kin. A weird kin. They called him the wild man. They called him the bastard son. They called him the forsaken one. They called him the wild man, for he had no patronage, no lineage, no heritage. They called him the wild king, for he did not act like they thought he should. They called him weird kin, since he called the trees his home. They called him the wild man. They called him the wild kin. They called him the weird kin. And as the weird kin grew, he became the bastard son of the forest. They called him bastard son, since blood and bone was broken to bear him, and no mother bore him. No mother bore him, no mother could bear him, but the blackest night. The blackest night gave birth to a bastard son, and a bastard son he was, with fire blazing in his black eyes. Fire blazed in his black eyes. Fire blazed in his black eyes. Fire blazed, and the boars suckled him, and the bears protected him, and the bastard son became the bewitched son. The bewitched son, protected by bears and boars, became the forsaken one. They called him the forsaken one, for there was no mother, only the forest. No mother, only the forest. The forest was mother. The forest was father. The forest was forsaken and forbidden, and from the forest came the feral one. The feral one was fierce and forged in fire, forged in fury, forged in the forest. The forest forged the forsaken one, and the forsaken one became Hernangaz. They called him Hernangaz. Hernangaz the Haunter. Hernangaz the Hunter. Hernangaz the Hunted. Hernangaz the Haunter. When the mist rose and the dark earth boiled, there he was, as elusive as a wisp, a hungry shadow. In the shadows he haunted, and he struck down many who opposed him. He struck down many who opposed the forest. Hernangaz the haunter, Hernangaz the hunter, Hernangaz the hunted. Hernangaz the hunter. Hernangaz hunted with wolf and boar and bear. He hunted the forest, and he sought not deer nor rabbit nor fox. He hunted humans and more. He hunted Normans. He hunted Norse. He hunted the Norns to learn the course of his life. Hernangaz the haunter, Hernangaz the hunter, Hernangaz the hunted. Hernangaz the hunted. They sought him here, there they sought him, never where they found him unless he wanted to be found. And found he was, with blade in hand and blood in mind. Hernangaz the haunter, Hernangaz the hunter, Hernangaz the hunted. And Hernangaz was hungry. Hernangaz the hungry. Hungry for blood, hungry for death, hungry. Hernangaz the always hungry. He haunted the forests, the dark forests. He hunted the forests, the liminal places, the dark places. He walked where shadows did not walk, and the shadows knew his name. Hernangaz, whom some called the bloody, some called the hooded, some called Hood. Part 1, intermission. Part 2, the dark breath of earth. The mist coiled and the mist boiled, and the mist rose out to the ground. From the ground the mist roiled and the mist boiled, and the mist was knives and teeth, and the mist shed blood. The mist rolled like a killing rain through the forest, and the ground was soaked with blood. Barely had it begun. Barely had it begun than the mist, the killing mist, the killing rain, soaked the ground, the killing ground. With knives and teeth and bone and blood, the killing mist swept through the forest. The killing mist swept through Sherwood. The killing mist swept through Sherwood. The killing mist swept through the dark forest. Barely had it begun. Barely had it begun than the killing mist swept, and the killing mist became the dark breath of earth, and the dark forest breathed. The dark breath rolled through the forest, and the dark breath rose from the forest, and the forest became the dark breath. The dark breath of earth breathed, and the forest breathed. Barely had it begun. Barely had it begun than the forest was the breath, and the breath was the forest. The forest breathed, and the earth breathed, and the dark breath boiled. The bastard sun blazed, and the dark breath boiled. The bastard sun boiled, and the dark breath burned. The bastard sun burned, and the dark breath blazed. The dark breath blazed, and the bastard sun boiled. The dark breath boiled, and the bastard sun burned. The dark breath burned, and the bastard sun blazed. The bastard sun blazed, and the dark breath boiled. the bastard sun boiled, and the dark breath burned. The bastard sun burned, and the dark breath blazed. The dark breath blazed, and the one called the bastard sun burned. The bastard sun burned with the dark breath, and the dark breath burned in him. The dark breath burned in Hernangaz. The dark breath blazed in Hernangaz. The dark breath boiled in Hernangaz. Hernangaz, the breather of the dark breath. Hernangaz, the hungry. Hernangaz, the bastard son. Hernangaz, the bastard son, and the dark breath. Hernangaz, the dark breath of earth. Hernangaz, the dark breath of the forest. Hernangaz, the dark breath of Sherwood. Hernangaz haunted Sherwood, from the Humber in the north to Buckingham in the south, from Willenhall in the west to Crowland east of Ermine Street. He haunted, he knew, the ancient trails that led to Curnow, to Scotland, to Wales. He haunted and knew them all, and nothing escaped his notice. Hernangaz haunted the dark forest. He knew the pathways that crossed the forgotten realms, that transversed terrible realms that existed before humans had learned to speak. Hernangaz was the dark forest. He was everywhere and nowhere, in every branch, every limb, every leaf. He was the rain, he was the wind, he was the sun. Hernangaz was the forest. Hernangaz, 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 the dark breath of earth. Hernangaz, the dark forest. Hernangaz of the hooded. Interlude, part 3 to follow shortly. Part 3 to sever.
Dissever, sever me never. When the dark breath rolls over the earth and the thunder crashes, when the dark breath rolls over the earth and the lightning strikes, when the dark breath rises over the earth, dissever, sever me never. I stand at the crossroads and weep. I stand at the waterfall and weep. I stand at the barrow and weep. I weep for the world. I weep for the wolf king. I weep for the wild king. Dissever, sever me never. He had war in his fist. He was the stack between the worlds. He was the winter witch, the hedge witch, the barrow witch. He was Hernangaz. Hernangaz, dissever me never. Stand by me at sundown. Stand by me at dusk rise. Stand by me at dawnfall. Hernangaz, stand by me. Dissever, sever me never. When the blade flashes, when the arrow stings, when the club falls, Hernangaz, dissever me never. Dissever, sever me never. Hernangaz. They called him the wild man. They called him the son of the forest. They called him the son of motherhood. They called him darkness. They called him legion. They called him, and they ran when he came. Hernandez. They called him the son of Cernunnos. They called him Stag Son. They called him the dark sun, the feral sun, the setting sun. Hernandez, the hunter of the forest. But he did not hunt alone. He hunted with Wolfram and Breed and Hirsiege. He hunted with the wolves' heads, the wolf kin, the weird kin. He hunted with the hooded. Hernandez, dissever me never. Dissever, sever me never. Dissever me never. Hernandez. He slipped the bonds of earth and had congress with demons. He slipped the bonds of earth and he was the dark breath of earth. He slipped the bonds of earth and kissed the sky. Hernandez, dissever me never. Stand by me when the arrows rain down. Stand by me when the swords fall. Stand by me when the timber breaks. Stand by me, Hernandez. Dissever, sever me never.
Thank you.
Buy this book.
Available for £6 of your English pounds if I can find any more copies. I have some in the van somewhere, I'm sure.
This one is mine and I won't.
The two voices work so well with that text.
I know. We tested it yesterday afternoon. It was like, we've got something here.
There is a
I think there might be an audiobook in the future.
Well, we have the audio already.
You know, of these three parts, but
and
there's a
when
whole
you
book
said
to go.
yesterday, that's a ritual, it's like, oh shit, yes it is. And it's
No.
like, part one is, there was this horrible, nasty character called Hernandez, basically Robin Hood, written from the Norman point of view, and then part two is kind of in action, and then part three is, he's gone, Hernandez, guide me, protect me, stand by me.
So let's see what
I've written
happens
a
today.
ritual
Who we
and I
have
realised-
conjured.
I love the mix, the refrains mixed between prose and poetry. It's difficult to decide where it quite fits. But because of that juxtaposition, it leaves you more unsettled,
Yeah.
which is exactly what you
It's
need,
exactly
isn't
what
it?
I'm after.
Yeah.
I've been writing for 40 years, and the last 10, 12 years I've started getting really, not bad. But those three pieces, that I spent the most time on that, because it really was, say it out loud, read it, recite it, intonate it. Something's not right. That one word is not wrong. It's not right. Get that word right. Get the next line in. Does it feel right? Does it flow? Build it up. And it was months and months of just endlessly repeating it. And the phrase, dissever, sever me never. I literally left the driveway of a friend's house in the car with a 2-hour journey ahead of me. And the phrase just came, dissever, sever me never. And it's like, I've set off, I haven't got pen and paper, so for 2 hours on the drive down south, it's like, I was driving going, dissever, sever me never. Oh, dissever, sever me never, dissever me never. Oh, that works as well. Oh, I'm halfway home, dissever, sever me never, I mustn't forget that.
So the ritual helped with the ritual then.
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit of Eliot, you know, the Murder in the Cathedral. The way that they use the recitative and then the kind of prose text, you know, that ritual sense of. I mean, that's a ritual murder, isn't it? So, but you know,
this is somebody's whole life in 3 short sequences.
It's a Shakespearean technique as well, isn't it? To have those
It is,
set pieces, you know.
Yeah, and the juxtaposition, which I didn't even know what I was doing, it just sounded and felt right. And when it all finally slotted into place, it was like, this is it. It sounds brilliant when I read it on my own. It sounds brilliant. I've got a paid for an actress to do a voiceover. It sounds brilliant when she does it. And when the two of us do it.
I love the mix of your languages as well and your pronunciations.
Yeah.
Really adds another dimension as well.
Really good.
No, it's a massive positive.
Yeah.
Because you've got such a mixture there, it unsettles it and makes it even more unworldly.
There's a
We
slight
said
lovely
that earlier.
dislocation
We're
to
an
it.
Anglo-Saxon duo.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I want to. Did you write it as a sort of story saga? Because it comes across like an old.
The whole thing is
story,
a series of tales that the notion is they're found tales. Truth be told, I wrote every single one of them, but it's sold as this was a bunch of crumbling parchments written in Old English and bits of Norse, and we've had them translated and so on. So I can go back at a later date and rewrite them and say we've had it reinterpreted. But that one really was, I've got this idea in my head that I want it as an old Norse thing. Forget rhyming, it's alliteration, it's repetition. Repeat the words, the phrases, you build it up and you build it up and you build it up, and there's that slightly dark unedginess, and it's lovely and it's malevolent and it's beautiful and terrifying.
Yeah, it's like poisonous smoke coming in here and just filling it up
Ooh.
slowly. You don't even realise you're the boiling frog in amongst it all, you know, it's that kind of.
But yeah, it works well on stage
all-encompassing.
out there, but in here as well.
Yeah, it's a good space for it,
Yeah.
because it kind of just brings in the walls for you
Mm.
when you're in the dark.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, kind of in the dark with
Do
the
it at
fire
night
and
time
the
with
night
just the
coming in.
lights on.
Yeah.
It would be really good. You should try that.
So we have to do it again.
Oh, the hardship, yes, we will. Thank you, you sold it to us. We'll be back.
If you can fit it in somewhere.
Oh, they can just do their own thing on the main stage. Whatever, someone else can organise that.
Interesting to hear it in the dark.
So of course there's one more element. When you perform within the Curious House of Stories, your stories and your performance become part of the very fabric of the wall. So we need you to sign the walls.
If you put your title and your name,
Yeah.
that
The
would
dates, whatever you like.
There's plenty of room.
Hello.
Just follow a trellis.
You know there are biscuits. There can be biscuits.
There may well be biscuits. In fact,
See you later.
there are biscuits.
But would you want to be there?